Can you please go back to the nursing notes, which are exhibit 23? And specifically, could we go to the entry for March 25th that starts on Depp 1736 and goes on to 1737? Ms. Lloyd, do you see at the bottom here where it says 325?
Yes.
Okay, and if we could just go to the next page, you'd agree that this is a continuation of that note, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and you see under 1330, it says patient states pain is 4 out of 10. Do you see that?
I do.
Okay, and what does that reflect?
Pain was being rated at a 4 out of 10 out of 10 out of 10.
And then directing your attention down to the entry from March 26th. This is a note that you prepared, yes?
Yes.
Okay, and just to make sure, I'm not sure I asked, but the prior two notes we looked at, those are also notes you prepared, right?
Correct.
Now, if you could, why don't you take a moment and read through this note and just let me know when you're done.
Okay.
Now, the beginning of the note starts at 1:45. Do you see that?
Yeah.
And so again, is that 1:45 in the morning?
Correct.
Okay. And it says here, RN called the patient's home. Upon arrival, patient and wife were fighting in the garage. Do you see that?
I do.
Do you remember this incident?
I do not.
Okay. It says, when argument became heated, patient removed himself from situation and had security drive him to another home. Do you see that?
I do.
I think you just testified you don't remember witnessing this, correct?
I do not.
But you don't have any reason to doubt the accuracy of what you wrote down in your note, correct?
I do not.
Had you seen Mr. Depp remove himself from fights before in this manner?
Yes.
Could we please turn to the entry for March 31st, which is on page Depp 1740. Okay. Ms. Boyd, this is also a note you prepared?
It is.
Do you see the portion that starts 1:30? Patient continues to CO pain 10/10, which is causing anxiety and insomnia. Do you see that? And
yes.
What does this mean? Plaintiff continues to CO pain 10/10.
Complain of.
Okay. And the 10 out of 10 is the pain on the scale that you referenced previously, correct?
Correct.
Directing your attention down to the portion that starts with 1615. It says, at follow-up with surgeon, bandage was removed from skin graft. Graft took 100%, but there was an infection under bolster. Finger was drained, pin was removed, and Rosafin 1G was administered during appointment. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
Even if my pronunciation is incorrect. Does this reflect that Mr. Depp had the bandage from his skin graft on his right middle finger removed on this date?
Meaning removed at that time or removed for good?
Removed at that time.
Yeah, at that time, that's what that would mean,
And the pin from his finger was also removed?
according to this.
Okay. And when you say the bandage was removed at that time, are you clarifying that because another bandage was put on?
I don't remember. That's why I was clarifying.
Okay. Do you remember what type of bandages Mr. Depp had on his hand at the time?
I didn't hear you. What type of bandage?
Yes.
I don't remember specifics.
Was it a hard cast or a soft cast?
Soft.
Okay. Was Mr. Depp's hand I'm sorry.
I don't recall if it was a cast, but I know the bandage was soft.
Okay. Do you recall whether Mr. Depp could move the hand that was bandaged?
Hand, yes, for a while. His finger was like splinted.
Okay. Did he grab anything with that hand?
I remember him pretending he had a claw. He could do this.
Were certain fingers bound together in the cast?
I don't remember specifics.
Okay. Mr. Depp eventually returned to Australia after the time period we were just discussing, correct?
Correct.
And you returned with him?
Correct.
And how long did you stay in Australia on that trip?
I don't recall.
I'd like to direct your attention to the last page of this document, which has entry for July 1st. Do you see that?
Yes.
Please take a moment and read through this and just let me know when you're done.
I'm done.
Okay, great. This is a note you prepared, yes?
Correct.
And do you remember the events reflected in this note?
I do not.
Directing your attention to the portion that starts with 1235. Do you see where it says, RN received text from patient's assistants that the arguments between patient and wife are continuing and RN should come to the set to see patient? Did I read that correctly? Sorry, I didn't hear your response.
Yes.
Okay. Who was the assistant referred to here, if you can recall?
I don't recall. He had two main assistants,
And who were they?
Stephen and Nathan.
Do you recall both of them being in Australia?
I don't recall if they were both there.
Why did you understand, strike that. Why did you understand that you were being called to set?
Objection of hearsay.
I don't recall at the time.
All right, now directing your attention to the last part of this note that says 2100. Says here, between shooting, patient was able to express his feeling to RN. He explained that his wife makes him feel that he can never do anything right and that they cannot have a conversation without her blowing up. Do you see that? And I think you testified you don't recall having this exchange with Mr. Depp.
Correct.
It goes on to say, patient was given positive reinforcement for expressing his feelings. Patient verbalized he knows it's best for them to take a break from each other when the fights start to escalate, but how she will follow him from room to room when he tries to get away. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Have you ever personally observed Mr. Depp try to get away from Miss Heard and her then following him?
Yes.
But you don't recall him telling you in this specific instance?
I do not.
And again, you don't have any reason to doubt the accuracy of this note?
I do not.
Okay. This appears to be the last note reflected in this document. Do you see that? And I think you said you don't recall specifically when you stopped caring for Mr. Depp, correct?
I'm sorry, what was the answer? Sorry.
Correct.
Sorry, thank you.
Do you recall why you stopped providing nursing services to Mr. Depp?
I do not.
Did you continue to work for Dr. Kipper after you stopped providing nursing services to Mr. Depp?
Yes.
Now, I think you testified earlier, you don't recall the last time you saw Mr. Depp?
Not for sure, no.
What's the last time that you remember seeing him?
I went to his, one of his Hollywood vampire show out here in the desert.
Was Mr. Depp and Miss Heard still in a relationship when you saw Mr. Depp the last time?
No. Not that I was aware of.
When was the last time you saw Miss Heard?
I have no idea.
What's the last time you remember seeing her?
I honestly don't know.
During the time you were Mr. Depp's nurse, did you ever see Mr. Depp physically abuse Miss Heard?
No.
If you had witnessed this, would you have documented it in your nursing notes?
Yes.
Did you ever see Mr. Depp throw anything at Miss Heard?
I do not recall ever seeing him throw anything. During the time you cared for Mr. Depp, did you ever see Miss Heard physically abuse Mr. Depp? No.
Did you ever see Miss Heard throw anything at Mr. Depp?
I don't recall.
In the time that you cared for Mr. Depp, did he ever tell you that Miss Heard was physically abusive towards him?
I don't recall any conversations like that.
Were you ever concerned for Mr. Depp's safety around Miss Heard?
No,
Were you ever called over by Mr. Depp when he was in a fight with Miss Heard?
I can't remember if it was when a fight. I remember being called over after fights.
And why, to the extent you know, why were you being called over?
My role with Johnny was medication or emotional support.
How many times did you travel with Mr. Depp while he was under your care?
Multiple, but I don't know a specific number.
Did you ever witness Mr. Depp and Miss Heard get in arguments while you were traveling?
Yes.
And what would Mr. Depp do in those circumstances?
I don't remember specifics other than the one time I mentioned on the airplane.
Did Mr. Depp ever book a separate room to separate himself from Miss Heard?
I don't recall.
Have you ever witnessed Miss Heard lose her temper?
I don't recall specifics.
What do you recall generally?
I can't recall.
In the time you treated Mr. Depp, did you ever suspect he was under the influence of alcohol?
I don't recall specific times being of concern.
Do you recall any specific instances when you were concerned he was under the influence of drugs that had not been prescribed by one of his physicians?
I do recall.
Did Mr. Depp ever tell you that someone had taken his prescription drugs?
I don't recall a conversation.